Good day! We are the Group 2 and we are assigned on the topics Moral Dilemma and Freedom. So first, what is dilemma? Moral dilemma is a situation in which a difficult choice has to be made between two or more alternatives, especially equally undesirable ones. If you find yourself facing a problem but the solutions available to you will only create another problem, or worse, create more problem, then you are in a dilemma. A moral dilemma is a situation where there are two or more actions that you can possibly do. There is a moral lesson for doing such actions, but you won't be able to do all the options provided to you because you can only pick one. So, whatever action you take will be in direct opposition to your feeling of what is right or wrong. That no matter what you do, you are doing something morally wrong while also doing something right. And there are three levels of dilemma. First is personal dilemma. This is when your decision in a morally conflicting situation has the potential to hurt you, another person, or a group of people. For example, someone is in a coma and will die once taken off life support. He has a slim chance of recovery, but he is also an organ donor, and there are two patients that will die if they don't get a transplant soon. You, as the closest member of the comatose patient, is aware of both of those things, and the doctor asks you if you want to keep the patient on life support, letting the other two to die, or let your relative die and give the other two a chance to live. In other words, a family member of a comatose patient with slim chance of recovery must choose between keeping the patient on life support or donating the patient's organs to other two patients. The next one is organizational dilemma. This occurs when a member or members of an organization are faced with a moral dilemma and their action has the potential to hurt the group as a whole or some of its members. A garment factory, for example, is not meeting its profit targets. If the corporation continues to fail its targets, the factory will not be able to meet its 5-year expansion plan, which will have a negative impact on the factory's financial future. Cutting costs by laying off some of the factory's employees was one strategy for resolving the factory's potential financial issue. The CEO and board members must now make a decision. Should they fire the employees in order to save the factory, or should they keep the workers working and find other ways to maximize profit and avoid a future financial crisis? To put it simpler, this is choosing whether to lay off employees or keep them working in a company that is on the potential verge of bankruptcy. And the third one is structural dilemma. This happens when the decision of a person or group of persons who holds high-level positions in the society can affect the entire social system. The controversy about the Social Security system in 2016 is an example of this dilemma. The members have been requesting a pension rise of 2,000 pesos. Some legislators are in favor of it, but SSS officials are against it, claiming that the institution cannot maintain such amount in the long term and that SSS will go bankrupt in 2024. Because he was the president of the Philippines at that time, President Benigno Aquino III had the last say and he voted for the bill enacted by Congress to raise the SSS pension. Because he believes that the entire SSS benefit system stability will be compromised in favor of 2 million pensioners and their dependents. Another example for this dilemma is what is happening right now, and that is the war between Ukraine and Russia. The focus of the dilemma is President of Ukraine's decision to either surrender or still fight for independence. We all know that President Zelensky, or the President of Ukraine's current decision, is the latter option. But a lot of soldiers, even civilians, have already died. Not only that, many buildings and infrastructures have been damaged. And even if this war ends, I really hope that it will end as soon as possible. It will take many years for Ukraine to recover. But if President Zelensky chose to surrender, the Ukraine's freedom will be compromised. And it is still yet unknown on what will happen if Ukraine will be under Russia's control in the future.
Freedom. So, what is freedom? According to Merriam-Webster's dictionary, freedom defines as the quality or the state of being free. When talking about freedom and responsibility, freedom defines and connotes no ties, no hindrances, no blocks, or easily assaying the state of being free. Responsibility, on the other hand, connotes on doing something not because you wanted to, but under preference that they expected from you. Why only humans can be ethical? There had been claims morality is not unique to human beings. Some studies consist of a chimpanzee, that gives a moral conduct on something, but other thinkers such as Immanuel Kant, René Descartes, and other philosophers think that only humans can be ethical. According to Saint Thomas Aquinas, the fundamental difference between a human ethics and an animal ethic is that animal behaves instinctively, while human behavior is irrational. To further understand the two, let's define both the instinctive behavior and the rational behavior. Instinctive behavior, it is inborn, hardwired characteristic response to environmental stimuli. An example of this is when a cat meets a dog. Its instinctive behavior is to run or find something that guard it, or even dare to fight against the dog. Animals' intent of self-sacrifice is more on reproductive success than the use of selfless motive. Examples of these include a dog shaking its head after it gets wet, a turtle seeking out on the ocean after hatching, or a bird migrating before the winter season. Rational behavior, on the other hand, is a decision-making process. Humans, as we are rational because we have the ability to choose the right from wrong. Rational is tied to moral standard. The human is free to decide or to act on his or her own way of decision. The foundation of morality. According to C.S. Lewis, morality is likened to a fleet of sheep. According to him, each ship must sail well on its own. Each ship must also coordinate with the other ship at all times in formation and avoid collision. Finally, the ship must have a destination or purpose of the journey, because if the ship aimlessly sailing, it has failed its ultimate purpose. It is a helpful way to think about morality in relation to self and others and your ultimate goal. But the crucial difference between a person and the ship is that the ship has a captain that gives orders to the personnel, while the person is free to choose his or her own action. So, by saying this, morality is something that is unique to every person. That comes the difference between the morality of a person and the morality that is likened to a fleet of sheep, because in a fleet of sheep, every person or every crew must adhere to the orders of the captain. While a single person is free to choose what or his or her own decision in his or her own way in making or in achieving his or her own goal. So why freedom is crucial in making moral decision? The personal aspects of morality is practicing constantly in developing a virtue so that thinking morally, performing moral acts, and choosing what is good becomes a habit. An efficiently run ship is a virtuous person. However, the ship is under the control of the captain, while a virtuous person is free to cultivate his or her own values. Hence, there is no virtue in self-restraint in the first place. You are prohibited from indulging. Hence, there is no virtue in self-restraint if in the first place you are prohibited from indulging, or you have no freedom to choose. So, a virtuous person can only have a virtuous person can only have a freedom if he or she has no or was not prohibited from anything, or is free to choose his or her own decision. Freedom is the foundation of the moral acts. For a person to be virtuous, he or she must also be free. Meanwhile, while talking about the interpersonal aspects of morality, discussion turns on the following rules. It is important to note that even in the following rules, freedom is essential. Rules help people to live together in harmony. It makes people recognize that apart from personal rights, people are equally important. Society nowadays, we have many rules to follow, especially in order to have our community to be in peace, or in order to pursue the peace treaty. But even though rules adhere to the meaning of freedom, it doesn't mean that rules is not important. Rules are made in order to follow moral decisions, such as we cannot rules stops crime, especially no rules lessens the crime rate rules lessens the crime rate, and rules also helps the harmony of every person in the community, but only when a person is free to recognize that he or she has the rights and that the people have the rights and both needs to be respected, will the person be able to pursue projects, be creative, or reach his or her own full potential for the benefit not just for the self but also for others. This means that even though we have the rules and the rights, we must know that every person has their own rights and rules, that we must know to respect them. We must know what boundaries we have to give to them, so that each of us will have our own full potential for the benefit not just for the self but also for the others.
The human person as a free being. The human being is more than its biological components. They are distinguishable from other living organisms by having a higher evolved brain and the ability to convey speech, and having listening skills. Human person is a being with inborn properties that he or she uses to direct his or her own development towards its fulfillment. One of its inborn properties is freedom. Some philosophical insights of freedom are as follows. Freedom is a gift. Freedom is the ability to make significant choices. It is important as it defines us who we are as human beings. And according to Marcel, freedom is a gift given to us by God. Freedom is complementary to reason. According to one of Aristotle's principles, free will and reason are complementary. Aristotle considered freedom and reason as necessary abilities for consciously making of things. Self-direction rather than bare impulsiveness is the crucial characteristic of the free person. As a moral agent, the human person must exhibit practical rationality to determine how to achieve his or her ultimate goal. Freedom is absolute. According to Jean-Paul Sartre, freedom is not the freedom to do something or anything. In his view, the human person is absolutely free. As I stated earlier, the human being is distinguished from other creatures as it has the ability to exercise freedom. Animals too have a sense of freedom. When they are not caged, animals have complete freedom to wander, eat when they want, and sleep wherever they want. However, when they are caged and try to escape, this freedom is what we call freedom from restrictions, a primitive kind of freedom and a freedom for mere survival. On the other hand, a person in jail is still free. A person is free to think, to change, and become a better person, free to redefine his or herself. Freedom demands responsibility. Jean-Paul Sartre believed a person always has a choice, that even not choosing is a choice. However, responsibility follows freedom. According to Sartre, even though we make our own choices as we are free to do so, these freely made choices have consequences as well. We have to be responsible for every act, whatever we do or don't do. Moreover, Lao Tzu advocated that a person can and should choose to act, but his or her action should be that which would result in harmony. Lao Tzu's idea was that one's freedom is not absolute in any society. There are factors that are beyond our control, which have the potential to rule our life. Responsibility as a moral quality serves as voluntary check and balance of one's freedom. Without the proper balance, unrestricted independence may be just as hazardous as a tightly controlled social organization. Such extreme ideas have resulted in significant societal injustices.